tuning into Nizzy Sports Chat. I am your host, Nizzy, and in this video, guys, we're going to be going through a little Packers off-season game plan here. Thought it'd be a fun video to come out and kind of address some of the areas of need on what I think the Packers need to work on throughout this off-season. You guys, obviously, we've had a bunch of big moves take place already in the last week or so, heading up to the new league year in the NFL. Obviously, the new league year kicked off yesterday afternoon. Packers had to get under that salary cap. There, I think they just snuck underneath there thanks to Randall Cobb taking a pay cut. I think he took about a $4 or $5 million pay cut. Helped the Packers get under the salary cap for the new league year here, you guys. Obviously, there's still lots of work left to do, to get those cap numbers down even more so we can sign some people throughout this offseason, get some of those key free agents back that are, currently not on our roster here from last season. Guys like Bob Tunyon, for one example. Definitely want to get guys like that back on the squad here. So anyways, you guys, I just thought it'd be fun to come out with a quick video here addressing the areas of need. Figured we'd break it down to each position group here, starting on the offensive side of the ball, and then working our way over to the defense. So right quick, before we get into it, you guys, if you can go ahead and like this video. If you like sporting content like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're looking for more sporting content like this in the near future. Been getting a ton of support lately, you guys, and I greatly appreciate it. We're going to keep coming out with as much content as possible for you guys. But without further ado, man, let's go ahead and start breaking down the Packers off-season game plan here. We'll start off on the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback room, you guys. Not a lot of changes need to be made in the quarterback room, in my opinion. There's a couple options, obviously, right now in the offseason here. Probably the most notable option we have right now is whether or not are we going to keep Jordan Love or we're going to try and trade him for some assets here in this offseason. Personally, in my opinion, you guys, I think the Packers will keep Jordan Love around. I know Aaron Rodgers just extended for 3 more years. I would expect him to probably only play 2 more at most, maybe even only 1 more. I think if we won the Super Bowl this year, I would not be surprised if he rides off into the sunset with the Super Bowl championship in hand and retires after this season. It wasn't the big 4-year deal that they were talking about in the mainstream media before Aaron Rodgers had signed anything. It's only a 3-year extension. Like I said, I think he'll end up playing 2 years at most, and then probably the 3rd year he'll end up retiring. That's just my personal opinion on it, you guys, so that's why I think the Packers are going to keep Jordan Love around. He's only sat for 2 seasons so far. I know Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years before he came in and replaced Brett Favre back in the day. So if Jordan Love sits this season, that'll be his 3rd season sat. Worst case scenario, if he's got to sit another season after that and he ends up sitting 4 years, I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. I think that gives you 1 year left on his rookie deal there where you can kind of see where he's at before you'd have to sign him to a contract extension. And that being said as well, I would say you could probably get him on a pretty cheap deal for a contract extension for a 2 or 3 year cycle, just to kind of see if this guy, has what it takes to get the big time contract or not. He could probably get a contract very similar to Mitch Trubisky, what he just signed with the Steelers, for like a 2-year deal, just to see if Jordan Love can be the guy that can take over for us. In the long term there after Rodgers does end up hanging up the cleats someday in the next few years here. But at the end of the day, you guys, as of right now in this offseason, I don't think we need to change anything to our quarterback room. I think we're just fine where it is. Kurt Benkert's probably going to be back on the squad as well. I like him, having him as that 3rd QB in the room there. Hopefully he sticks around as well for another season. Moving over to the running backs, you guys, same thing here. I don't think we need to add anything to our running back room right now. Obviously, we got the 2-headed tandem in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon right now. Probably one of the better two-headed tandems in the league, in my opinion, right up there with Chubb and Hunt. A couple other tandems throughout the league right now. I would say they're right up there in the tops of them. And then obviously you're going to have Kylan Hill coming back off of the ACL injury that he suffered last year. You still got Patrick Taylor and Dexter Williams, I believe, on the practice squad or in there somewhere. So wouldn't be surprised if those guys come back as well. So to me, there's not really anything that needs to be adjusted on the running back room for this offseason, you guys. I think we're sitting pretty nice with our running backs right now. And then heading over to the wide receiver room, you guys. Obviously, the biggest thing that needs to be done this offseason is get Devontae Adams an extension. The last thing you want to do is have us coming into training camp in August and have this guy still on the franchise tag. He said in an interview last week that he would not play on the franchise tag for the Packers no matter what anyone says to him. Even Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be able to convince him to play on the franchise tag. It'll be interesting to see. I think these are all negotiation tactics at this point in time. I do think he would play on the franchise tag. Otherwise, he's losing out on a season of football as well as losing out on almost $20 million if he chooses not to play on the franchise tag. It's just a negotiating tactic, in my opinion, right now. I do hope he does get that extension for a few seasons. before the season starts. But at the end of the day, I'm not too concerned about him sitting out for the season if he doesn't get the extension. I really do believe that this guy would come and play, because I just can't see him giving up $20 million basically. I don't think he'll just kibosh the 20 mils and sit out the season. But that's just my personal opinion, you guys. So I do think he'll be playing next year. I do think the Packers will get him extended, though, before the season starts, so we don't have to worry about that stuff. Alan Lazard got the exclusive rights free agent tender on him for a second-round pick. He'll be back next season. I'd be very surprised if anyone gave us, or anyone matched an offer for him. No one's really going to want to give up a second-round pick, I don't think, for this guy. I believe he was undrafted as well when we picked him up. So he's not even a drafted talent. So it'd be very shocking if someone would sign him to give away a second-round pick, especially for an undrafted wide receiver. Obviously, Cobb's going to be staying now, you guys, with that salary cut. Kudos to him, credit to him for taking a pay cut to stay with the Packers. Love Cobb as a Green Bay Packer man. Obviously, he's drafted by the organization, one of the staples within that locker room. One of the leaders in the locker room, good veteran presence to have. So I'm really happy that he's sticking around. MVS is most likely going to be gone, you guys. In my opinion, I think we should let him walk. Hasn't been that healthy over the last season or two. Obviously, you remember 2 seasons ago, he had a couple key drops and that huge fumble in the overtime against the Colts there that cost us that game when Phillip Rivers was still the quarterback for the Colts 2 seasons ago, you guys. So I just don't trust him 100%. I like that he's a good deep threat for us, but like I said, he was not healthy last season at all. Even in the games that he did play, he wasn't really targeted that much by Aaron Rodgers. So I'd like to see him bring in a legitimate number 2. I'd like to see him let MVS walk, try and create some cap space, and bring in a legitimate number 2 to go alongside Davante. Have Alan Lazard as your locked-in number 3, and then you can have the back end of your wide receiver room be Randall Cobb and Amari Rodgers. But if we can bring in a number 2 like Juju Smith-Schuster, who I believe is a free agent this year, same thing with Allen Robinson. Julio Jones just got cut by the Tennessee Titans. If you could bring one of those guys in or draft a key wide receiver in the first or second round of this draft, I think that'll go a long way to helping out Rodgers in that offense, not break down and, just not have those possessions where we're stagnant and don't really have anywhere to go or can't find an open man. We need to get a good number 2 that can get open consistently. That'll only help out Davante Adams and guys like Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb as well going down the stretch, you guys. So fingers crossed there. We can find somebody in free agency or the draft here just to kind of solidify that wideout room. Like I said, I don't see us signing MVS in that one. So that's kind of where I'm at with the wide receivers heading into the offseason here, you guys. Over into the tight end slot. Obviously, Big Dog's going to be coming back, I would assume. Obviously, with Aaron Rodgers getting an extension. He's obviously a big fan of Mercedes Lewis, so I would expect him to be back for one more season with the Packers. Obviously, Daphne got an exclusive rights free agent tender on him. He's going to be back for another season with the squad. You still got Josiah DeGuara, who I think is going to take another big step this season. Obviously, he got to finally play a full season pretty healthy last year, you guys. So I really see him taking another step forward this season. And then, like I said, we got to get Bob Tonyan signed, in my opinion. Coming off that ACL injury, he should be good to go by the start of the season because it was a clean tear. I think he's huge, man. I think we definitely need to get this guy back in action. He's one of the key targets for Aaron Rodgers when he's healthy. Really shaped into one of the better tight ends in the league the last couple of seasons here. So would love to see him come back, even if it's on a 1-year prove-it deal. Coming off that injury, would just like to see him back on the squad to solidify our tight end room. And then we don't really have to worry about any tight ends, maybe draft one, just to have one on the back end there just to see if, he can turn into something later on down the road. But other than that, I think our tight end room's in a pretty good spot right now, especially if Bob Tonyan comes back into the fold, you guys. Then going over to the offensive line to round out the offense here. Obviously, Lucas Patrick, we got the news announced yesterday that he is going over to the Chicago Bears, signing a 2-year deal with them, I believe, 2 or 3-year deal. So that's, a pretty key component on the interior of that offensive line for us. He played a pivotal role last season with all the injuries we were dealing with. So sad to see him go. He was a good role-playing offensive lineman for us. I definitely don't think he's some steal of a deal for the Bears. He's definitely not a high-caliber starting offensive lineman. He's a back-end starter and a good bench player coming off for the O-line, in my opinion, but he's not a bona fide starting offensive lineman, in my opinion. So it's not a huge loss, but we did end up cutting Bill Turner, so it kind of hurts a little bit losing both of those guys. Obviously, you have Elton Jenkins going to be out probably most of the season with that torn ACL that he suffered late last year. So we're definitely going to need to figure out a few things with the offensive line. Obviously, Hansen is going to stay, and Josh Nijman is also staying with the squad. They both got the exclusive rights free agent tendered on them as well. Dennis Kelly's a free agent. Wouldn't mind seeing him come back on a veteran minimum, especially now that Bill Turner and Lucas Patrick are both gone. You're still going to have John Runyon in there, Josh Myers. Both of those guys are really solid. Bakhtiari's going to be back healthy and ready to go. That's going to be a huge addition to your left tackle for the season. I think we're going to need to draft someone as well here. I think we'll end up drafting somebody in the first 3 rounds, probably at the offensive tackle position. Probably try and find our right tackle of the future, in my opinion. But that's my guess, you guys. I think we'll try and draft an offensive lineman and maybe bring someone in free agency as well, just to kind of round it out. But we're pretty solid in our offensive line room. Got a lot of good key contributors already. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think the Packers are in fine condition in that offensive line room as of right now, you guys. So, and then moving over to the defensive side of the ball after we round out the offense there, you guys. Sorry, it's going to be a bit of a long video, but just kind of wanted to go through addressing all of the areas of need, or what I think are areas of need for the Packers organization here in this offseason, you guys. And heading over to the defensive line. Personally, to me, man, we got to let Tyler Lancaster go. I just don't feel like this guy brings you any true value or heavy production coming off the bench. He's, not a starting defensive lineman for you. Like I said, he's been with the team for a few years now, hasn't really gotten much better. It's been kind of that same consistent, average / below average D lineman. Definitely would like to see him just move on already. Wouldn't mind seeing Whitney Merciless come back. I know he's more of a outside linebacker, but he can fit in nicely on the edge. Coming off on that defensive line. I thought he gave us good minutes out on the field when he did play. Obviously suffered that torn bicep and missed a bunch of the season when we did bring him over from the Texans last year. But he could be a very nice cheap option for us, who can produce some decent minutes out on the field, some decent snaps for you, especially with Zadarius Smith being gone now. Tyler Lancaster, I expect them to release. So you're kind of thin at that defensive line position. Definitely want to see Merciless come back. I think he's a good veteran to have in the locker room. TJ Slayton as well. I'm expecting him to get a lot more snaps this year. I think he can take a big step forward this season and be a big time, just a big time wall, big time blocker inside there, right alongside Kenny Clark, just creating havoc in the backfield in the run game. So I think he's going to take a big step forward. And like I said, you're going to have to draft a defensive lineman. I expect the Packers to draft probably 2 defensive linemen in this draft, just because we are hurting a little bit in that area. I think it's one of our biggest areas of need heading into this offseason here. So I definitely would like to see us probably with our first round pick. I would not be upset at all if we took a D lineman in the first round, and then maybe a 3rd or 4th or 5th round selection. One of the later rounds, take another D lineman, see if he can turn out to be anything. And then maybe even go and try and find someone in free agency, that can solidify that grouping there. But we're definitely going to need to revamp that a little bit there. We want to have a heavy pass rush this year, obviously, with letting Zadarius Smith walk. We're going to have to figure out a few things there to keep that pass rush going heavy. Obviously, Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary did a great job last season. Heading over to the outside linebacker room there, you guys. Randy Ramsey got the exclusive rights free agent tendered on him, so he will be back. Obviously, Preston Smith signed that extension, to drop his cap hit this season, so he's going to be back in the fold for the foreseeable future. Rashawn Gary's kind of emerged as our true number 1 pass rusher now. Kind of took in that spot from Z last season, as Z was suffering that back injury, had to go get surgery, pretty much ended his season last year. Rashawn Gary stepped up majorly, led the team with 9.5 sacks last year. Just an outstanding performance last season from him. He keeps getting better year in and year out, showing why we drafted him early on in the first round a few seasons ago. And then as for, addressing that outside linebacker room, you guys, I definitely think we're going to need to draft an outside linebacker in this year's draft. Like I said, it's got to be either a D lineman or an outside linebacker, in my opinion, in the first round. Try and find someone who's a solid, bona fide guy who can, produce some good minutes out on the field for us as a rookie. And other than that, if we can find a free agent vet, that's, can come in kind of like a Devondre Campbell on a vet minimum deal, and provide some good time production for us out on the field, that'd go a long ways for outside linebacker room, you guys. And then over to the middle linebacker room, I mean, we're perfect at this position right now, in my opinion. Huge signing. Devondre Campbell's back in action with us for 5 more years. I would expect a couple of those years are probably void years. I think he's 29 right now, so wouldn't be surprised if he only ends up playing 2 or 3 years with the Packers. But nonetheless, we got him for the foreseeable future. Probably the best Mike linebacker we've had, in a long, long time. I want to say the next closest Mike linebacker we've had that's been I don't even think he's as good as Devondre, but he's been close to him, was Blake Martinez. He was a guy who would fly around all over the field, getting lots of tackles for us as well, back in the day before he went to the Giants. But we haven't had a Mike linebacker like Devondre Campbell in so many years. Great to have him back on the squad for the long term here. Chris Barnes is also going to be back as well. He was signed to an exclusive rights free agent tender as well. So him and Campbell is a nasty 1-2 punch, that Mike linebacker, in my opinion. Warren Burks is going to be heading over to the 49ers, I believe, so he's gone now. But we're still solid. We got McDuffie, who we drafted in last year's draft. I think he can be a real good, solid option for us as a backup, and same as Ty Summers. So I really don't see us really needing anything at the Mike linebacker position. Maybe you bring someone in free agency. That's just a cheap deal just to, get that fifth Mike linebacker in there, and that can play some special teams for you. Other than that, maybe you draft one in one of the later rounds. But at the end of the day, our middle linebacker room is really solid right now. Huge to have Devondre Campbell back in the fold. I think it's probably one of our biggest areas of strength on the defense right now, which you weren't able to say about the Packers in years past. So it's definitely nice to see that, you guys. And then over to the cornerback room. We're pretty solid at the cornerback spot as well right now. Obviously, the Packers are working on an extension with Jair Alexander, which would be huge. Same thing with Rasul Douglas. They're trying to get him re-signed. Really hope that ends up working out. He was outstanding for us last season with the 5 interceptions. I think he had 2 pick sixes as well. Just an absolute came out of nowhere. Cornerback for us. Just played a huge pivotal role in us being able to make it as far as we did, and have the record that we did last season. And then if you think about having Jair, Eric Stokes, who had a really solid rookie season, and then if you get Rasul Douglas back in the fold there, you guys, that is a nasty 1-2-3 punch at the cornerback room. We might have one of the best cornerback trios in the league with those 3 guys if we do get Rasul Douglas signed. So that's huge to me, getting him back. If we can't get Rasul Douglas back, in my opinion, we should try and sign Chandon Sullivan because he's also a free agent. And I think he's a better option than having Kevin King, who's also a free agent. I definitely think we should let Kevin King walk this year. He's just injured too much, and he doesn't really produce a lot when he's out on the field. He's more of a liability out there than he is an asset. So in my opinion, we got to let that guy go. Maybe even draft a cornerback too if we can't get Sullivan or Rasul Douglas signed. You definitely have to want to draft a cornerback just to solidify that room. Obviously, we got Shamar Jean-Charles, who might take a step forward this season. Drafted him in last year's draft as well. So at the end of the day, we're pretty nice at the cornerback slot. Might need to fill a couple holes there depending on what happens with some of our free agents. But at the end of the day, we're got a nice top-heavy unit with Jair and Eric Stokes there that are going to lead the way for years to come here. So I'm not too concerned about the cornerback room, you guys. Then heading over to the safety spot. Obviously, Amos, I think they restructured his contract to save a few $1 million off the cap hit. I was hoping they were just going to give him an extension. I thought he deserved an extension to stick around with the Green Bay Packers for a few more years. I want to say this might be the last year of his contract this year or next year. Is the last year of his contract, and then he's got a couple void years on top of that. But he's been playing outstanding for us the last couple seasons, man. Seems to be getting better. One of the leaders on that defensive side of the ball as well. Him and Darnell Savage are one of the better safety duos in the league, in my opinion. We ended up cutting Henry Black. He's not getting signed to the exclusive rights free agent tender, so he's no longer with the squad. So we still got Vernon Scott there in the backup spot for one of the safety spots for us. So at the end of the day, Packers can probably draft one here, to take over the spot for cutting Henry Black. If they don't draft one, I'm sure we can find a free agent vet for a vet minimum somewhere as well, just to kind of solidify the back end of our safety unit there. But at the end of the day, I think we're in good shape in the safety room as well, you guys. And then leaving the kicker and the punter. Obviously, we still got Mason Crosby under contract. There was talks of him possibly being cut. I think he would have got cut if Aaron Rodgers had ever signed. But the fact that Aaron Rodgers is back with the Pack, obviously him and Rodgers are good buddies. I definitely don't see them cutting Crosby. And it is tough to find good kickers nowadays, you guys. So just because he had a bit of a rough season, you can't chalk that all up to him. We were terrible, on that offensive line, trying to block, or that line, whatever you want to call it, the front of the special teams there. I mean, we're allowing too many blocked kicks last season. Allowing penetration through that line way too easy. Bad holds by the punt or by the kick or the punter as well when Crosby's going to kick it there. Bojorquez had a couple bad holds last year. So at the end of the day, I expect Crosby to bounce back. We get that special teams sorted out. We got Rich Bisaccia there now as a special teams coordinator. I think he's going to make a world of a difference. With that special teams unit next season. And I think the Packers are going to invest some capital here as well in making sure that our special teams isn't in shambles next year. So I expect him to be a lot better next season. Obviously, we found a punter as well. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head right now. I want to say it's Pat O'Donnell. I want to say that's the guy's name. I could be wrong. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. But we just signed him from the Bears. Obviously, letting Bojorquez go. So we'll have to see how this guy does for us. I think he's definitely going to be an upgrade from Bojorquez. At the end of the day, though, we can swap those pieces out if need be. You can always find another punter out there if you have to. And then, like I said, Crosby, is going to stick with the team, so we don't have to worry about that. So then if you go and look at the draft board, you guys, on what I think the Green Bay Packers are going to have to focus on in this year's draft. Obviously, we have 9 picks in this year's draft. I think we got 2 compensatory picks for a couple players that ended up getting signed to other teams last offseason there. So I think we got an extra 4th rounder, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's an extra 4th round pick and an extra 7th round pick. So that gives us a total of 8 picks in this year's draft, you guys. Some of the areas of need that I have for the Packers for the draft, probably the biggest area of need, in my opinion, is going to be the 2 lines. We're going to need someone from the defensive line, as well as the offensive line. I think we should probably draft 2 D linemen total in this year's draft, and at least 1 offensive lineman, maybe even 2 offensive linemen as well. I think we're going to need to draft at least 1 wide receiver, maybe even 2. I think it's important for us to get a wide receiver in one of the earlier rounds this year, and then maybe take a chance on a wideout in one of the later rounds as well. Tight end position, I don't think we're going to need a tight end unless we can't get Bob Tonyan signed. Then we should be looking at drafting a tight end in one of the middle rounds, in my opinion, just to solidify that room as well. Outside linebacker, definitely going to need at least 1 piece through the draft, in my opinion, in that spot as well. If we don't find a backup safety in free agency, we'll have to draft a safety in this year's draft as well. And then same with the cornerback room, you guys. If we can't get Rasul Douglas or Chandon Sullivan signed, we're going to have to most likely draft a cornerback as well. So we'll have to see what happens. But those are kind of the areas of need that I have for the Green Bay Packers heading into this offseason, you guys. Already made a lot of good moves so far. Keeping pretty much the bulk of the team together. Try and get a few of these big key time free agents signed here in the next few weeks, hopefully. And then just gear up for a good draft here. Try and get some good assets. Try and get some difference makers that can make an impact on the team this year and for years to come, and we'll see what happens from there, you guys. But that pretty well rounds out this video. Bit of a longer one here today, but just wanted to cover off all the bases, and kind of address some of the needs that the Packers should be looking at this offseason. Would love your guys' opinion in the comment section down below. You think I nailed it with kind of the needs that the Packers should be looking for this offseason, or what are some of the positions you think the Packers should be looking into, to try and bolster their roster here heading into the 2022 season. Like I said, would love your guys' opinion in the comment section down below. That pretty well rounds her out for this one, you guys. Please go ahead and like this video if you like sporting content like this. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're looking for more sporting content like this in the near future. Thank you guys so much for watching, man. This is Nizzy with Nizzy Sports.